Alright guys, so this is the second radical video. And in this video we're going to talk about radicals, but this time we're going to talk about radicals with variables in them. Okay, so it's the same type of concept, so hopefully it won't throw you off too much. But let's look at number 1 as an example problem. Alright, so when I see the square root of 48x to the cubed, I am going to break that apart. Okay, I'm going to break that apart to the square root of 48 times the square root of x cubed. Okay, then we're going to break the square root of 48 down just like we normally would. So whatever method you use, so I say 2 goes into it 24 times, 2 goes into 24 12 times, 3 goes into 12 4 times, 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 2 once. When I get to 1, we are done. Okay, so if I go and circle my pairs, I have a pair of 2's and another pair of 2's. So the square root of 48 is, remember, when I have more than one pair, I bring them out front and I multiply them. My leftovers go in the fridge. So the square root of 48 is the same as 4 times the square root of 3. All right, now let's look at my variable. Okay, remember, x cubed is simply x times x times x. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing as this, and if you want, you can go ahead and write it up and down. So x cubed, if I take x out, I get x squared. If I take x out, I get x. If I take x out, I get 1. When I get to 1, I'm done. Okay, so x times x times x this way, or x times x times x this way, it doesn't really matter. You still have a pair of x's. So remember, pairs still come out front, so I have an x that comes out front, and leftovers go in the fridge. So I have the square root of x to the third is x times square root of x. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. Remember, I changed it to square root of 48 times the square root of x cubed, and my square root of 48 is 4 square root of 3 times square root of x cubed is x square root of x. Okay, now I'm going to go and I'm going to highlight everything that's not inside of the square root, and I'm going to highlight in a different color everything that is inside of a square root. Okay, so I'm going to put what's not in the square root together. I'm going to multiply them. So 4x square root of, what's in purple is 3x, and that's in the square root. This is my final answer. All right, so let's look at problem number 3 here. Okay, so problem number 3 is square root of 63m to the 4th. So just like before, I'm going to break it apart in a square root of 63 times the square root of m to the 4th. Okay, and I'm going to look at these separately. Okay, so if I break 63 down, I know 3 goes into 63 21 times, 3 goes into 21 7 times, 7 goes into it once. I have my pair of 3 that goes on the outside. My leftovers go in the fridge. So square root of 63 reduces to 3 square root of 7. Okay, now over here I have my m to the 4th. So, and you could either write this left or right or up and down. So m to the 4th is m. If I take m out, I have m cubed left. If I take another m out, I have m squared left. If I take another m out, I have just one m left. If I take another m out, I have 1. So remember, m to the 4th is just m times m times n, m times m. Okay, so 4 of them. So I have a pair of m's and another pair of m's and no leftovers, meaning I don't have anything in a square root. Okay, and my pairs come out front, and if there's more than one, I multiply them. So m times m is just m squared. All right, so I separated 63m to the 4th, the square root of 63, times square root of m to the 4th. And my square root of 63 is 3 square root of 7 times my square root of m to the 4th is just m squared. Now I'm going to take my highlighter, highlight everything on the outside of a square root one color and everything on the inside another color. And then I'm just going to put them together. So 3m squared goes on the outside, and I'm going to multiply them. So 3m squared, square root of 7. That is my final answer. All right, let's look at problem number 8. Okay, this is big, long, and it looks kind of scary, but really if we break it down, it's not that bad. So once again, I'm going to separate this to the square root of 27 times the square root of a to the 11th times the square root of b to the 7th. Okay, now 27, if I break it down, 3 goes into 27 9 times, 3 goes into 9 3 times, 3 goes into 3 once. 1, we're done. Circle my pairs. So I have a pair of 3's and a leftover 3. So this is just 3 square root of 3. Okay, that's part of it. Now my a to the 11th, I'm just going to write this all down. This is a times a, 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm going to pair them up. So here's a pair, and a pair, another pair, another pair, and another pair, and I have one that's left over. Okay, so when I simplify this, it's going to be a times this pair of a times this pair of a times a times a, and then I have a single a that's in the fridge. Okay, so a times a times a times a times a is just a to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A to the 5th, a to the 5th, square root of a. Okay, and that's what my a to the 11th breaks down to. Okay, now let's do b to the 7th. So b to the 7th, I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Circle my pairs. I have a single left over. So I'm going to get b times b times b, square root of b. So b times b times b is just b cubed, square root of b. That's what b to the 7th breaks down to. Okay, now I'm just going to put them all together, guys. So this was square root of 27 times the square root of a to the 11th times the square root of b to the 7th. Okay, and I found that square root of 27 breaks down to 3 square root of 3. My a to the 11th breaks down to a to the 5th square root of a, and my b to the 7th breaks down to b cubed square root of b. Okay, and I'm going to go to highlight everything that's not in the square root, and then with a different color, everything that is in the square root. Okay, now I'm going to multiply what's not in the square root together. So I have 3 times a to the 5th times b to the 3rd square root of, and then multiply everything under the square root. So in purple, 3 times a times b. Here is my final answer. All right, so I want you to go ahead and try to do this one on your own. This is number 9 on your worksheet. So go ahead and try to do this one on your own, and then we will go over it. All right, let's go over this. So the first thing I did is I broke the square root of 32, a to the 7th, b to the 4th apart. So square root of 32, square root of a to the 7th, square root of b to the 4th. Okay, and then I broke each of these components down individually. So square root of 32 came out to 4 square root of 2. Square root of a to the 7th broke down to a cubed square root of a. And square root of b to the 4th broke down to b squared. There were no leftovers, so I didn't have a square root that went with that. Okay, so then I substituted. Okay, so my 4 square root of 2 went in for my 32. A to the 3rd square root of a went in for my a to the 7th, and my b squared went into square root of b to the 4th. Okay, now I highlighted everything on the outside yellow, and then I multiplied them, so I got 4a cubed b squared, and then I multiplied everything on the inside of the square root in purple, and I multiplied them, so I'm left with square root of 2a in the middle, or on the inside. So 4a cubed b squared square root of 2a would be your final answer.